Hello, I'm Lisa Willmer, Corporate Counsel at Getty Images, the world's leading provider of imagery and other digital content to business and media. I'm an attorney who helps ensure photographers' copyrighted images are only used with proper permission. At GettyImages.com, that permission is always in the form of a license and payment of a license fee. We're not digging into all the details of copyright in this short conversation, but at the end of the session, we'll point you to a resource for more information. Our discussion is focused on how photographers' ability to make a living and to continue to create great images is affected when anyone uses their images without permission. We're speaking with two photographers whose work is represented by Getty Images. Catherine Ledner is a professional photographer based in the United States who has been in the photography business since 1994. Catherine has a degree in film from NYU and a degree in photography from the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. She has more than 700 images available for licensing on GettyImages.com and has 2 books of her photography available through Amazon.com. Garron Nicholls lives in London in the United Kingdom and started working with Getty Images as a member of Flickr. Getty Images and Flickr have a partnership where Flickr members can license their imagery through GettyImages.com. Garron has lived and worked in several different countries across 4 continents and joined Flickr in 2005, where he subsequently developed his photography skills. Garron's imagery has been available for commercial licensing at Getty Images since the Getty Flickr pilot program began in December 2008. He has more than 200 images on GettyImages.com. Welcome, Catherine and Garron, and thanks for joining me to talk about how you expect your copyrights to be honored by those who wish to use your images, and about how you expect Getty Images to protect the value of your images if we find that they're used without permission or license. Catherine, can you explain how you earn money with the images that you license through Getty Images?
Sure. I will set up a shoot, then go through a pretty detailed editing process and prepare the images for upload. And once they sell, I receive a royalty from Getty, and it is a very important part of my general income. And it's also encouraged me to shoot more.
And what kind of costs might people be surprised to learn are incurred in producing images such as these?
Each model is paid a fee. The location fee is paid. Assistants are paid. There's equipment rental, feeding my crew. And then afterward, there's my time editing and my assistant's time retouching many, many images, not all of which will end up on Getty Images. So there's a good amount of financial outlay originally on my part.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the unique animal photos that you have. Can you talk a little bit about some of the unusual costs that might be associated with setting up a shot like that involves an exotic animal?
Yeah. For instance, you might pay $750 to the owner of the hedgehog. You also have the trainer of the hedgehog, which you might pay $350 plus transportation fees. Same goes for the alligator. Same goes for the deer. The trainer felt like the deer needed to come on set a day ahead of time so that it felt comfortable being there. And I incurred all the same costs, so the next day he could come on set and perform. It's been a quite expensive project on my end, but one that I'm glad I did.
Garron, your images are very different than Catherine's in terms of their focus and subjects. Can you talk a little bit about how you develop your ideas and set up your shots and ultimately bring them to the marketplace?
For me to take a photograph, I always like to do some kind of research beforehand to understand what's been done before and how I can take a unique take on it, or to understand what actually works for that particular subject. I often find that I'm sitting around waiting for the right moment, be that the right light, and be that where I'm not having people inside the shot I'm trying to take, or trying to figure out how you can actually take the best image of what you see over there. For example, I've been in Malaysia and noticed that there's some fantastic lightning storms going on. So I left the party I was in, the people I was with, took out my equipment and took some photographs on the beach lit by the lightning. Cameras are not cheap, and I'm upgrading them to improve my photography. Lenses are not cheap. Of course, filters, tripods, or the rest of the equipment to take the images I take. And of course, the effort, the time spent in what you're doing. It would be nice to go somewhere, take a snap, and then go for a drink, but more often than not, you're spending more time trying to take the photograph. In addition, of course, is post-processing, which can take at least as long as the time that you devoted to taking the photograph. I love doing it, otherwise I would not be doing it. But people should understand that there is time, effort, money, and patience involved in taking the photographs.
So after all the work and time and cost that you put into your imagery, it must be maddening to see your images used somewhere and then find out that they weren't licensed and that you weren't getting paid for that use. How worried are you both about the security of your images?
I'm very worried. The images I'm trying to sell through Getty, I'm trying to sell to make a profit in order to invest back into my photography. If images have been used without that licensing taking place, then that's going to affect any future sales of that particular image. This affects me greatly.
Yeah, and I'm worried as well, mostly because it affects the integrity of the image. If someone is using an image improperly and another client comes along and wants to use that same image properly, but has seen that it's being used by somebody else and thinks, oh, this image of, a boy in the park is already being used by so-and-so, so we better not use it. Well, if so-and-so is using the image without paying any licensing fees, not only have I been hurt by the illegal use of the image, but I've also lost a sale. It devalues the image for a legitimate sale.
One of the important available options for our customers is to be able to license an image exclusively, and that does require us to know and to be able to assert to the customer that it hasn't been used by other customers. And obviously, that's made more difficult if somebody is using an image without authorization.
So to give an example of how that's affected me commercially, I did take a photograph from Venice, which I subsequently found a travel booking website stole and stuck on their main page in order to sell their product.
Yes, and I've seen a person in England take my hedgehog and pull him out of the shot and use a filter over him to make him look slightly different. But it's the same hedgehog, the same pose, the same everything. It's obviously the same image. It's just been altered. And then they printed greeting cards and sold a line of greeting cards. A friend saw it and alerted me to it. I alerted Getty to it, and I did get an apology from the user themselves.
Unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in unauthorized uses. We think that's largely because professionally produced imagery used to be accessible only to design and publishing professionals who understood the ins and outs of copyright and licensing for commercial use. But new technology is making images on our website more visible to many new people who are not familiar with the way the business works.
Yes, I agree. People need to understand that content is not produced free and has to be paid for in some way or the other.
Catherine, if someone uses your images without permission or other photographers' images without permission, how does it affect the photographer's ability to earn a living from imagery?
The income generated by royalties helps me to create more images. So if a company is using my image and not paying for it, then I feel like it's, I'm being robbed. And then I'm also being discouraged from shooting more and putting more up for fear of it being taken. But that said, I love taking pictures and I will not stop.
So how aggressive do you expect Getty Images to be in pursuing people who use your imagery without permission?
I expect Getty Images to be very aggressive because it's in both of our interests.
If people are using our images to make money, then frankly that's just not right. And I would want Getty to strongly go after them. That it would be far less expensive for people to actually license the image on the outset than to pay the penalty when the unauthorized use is found.
So I wanted to thank you both for helping us understand how copyright is the foundation of your businesses and how important it is that more people understand the copyright issues around photography. What's the one thing that you really want folks to think about before using your imagery? Much
more goes into making a photograph than they might think. This is, after all, our livelihood. When people use our images correctly, then that gives us more incentive to create more images.
And I would just say that licensing is easy and can be very inexpensive.
I would agree. Much better to do the right thing up front than to do the wrong thing and have to pay for it in spades later.
Just because you can download an image does not mean that you can use it legally. For any commercial or editorial use, licensing is key.